Somdev Devvarman, Padmashri winner, and a former Indian tennis player with accolades including the Arjuna Award. Padmashri, his remarkable journey has left an indelible mark on Indian sports. A distinguished former professional tennis player, he has proudly represented India on international platforms like the Asian Games, Commonwealth Games, and the Olympics. Beyond his on-court achievement, is committed to empowering underprivileged school children in Chennai through sports, serving as a mentor and advisor to India's promising tennis talent. Put your hands together. Let's welcome Somdev on stage. Very, very warm welcome to you. We are blessed to have you here. Thank you so much. Over to you.
How's it going, everyone? Good evening, good evening, good evening. And thank you so much for having me, everybody. Thank you, Get Set Learn. Thank you, Ty. I mean, how incredible is this to have so many young, bright minds in one place together, discussing ideas and honing each other's skills, because truthfully, you guys are the future of India. We are not. In many ways, we are not. We will be passing on our problems to you, and you will be solving all of our problems. So thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Get Set Learn. Thank you, Ty, for putting all of this together, because this is incredible to be around so many young, curious minds. Now, sometimes I ask myself, what am I really doing over here? Because ultimately, I'm just a sports person. I'm just a tennis player. I've played tennis. And all of you guys want to be entrepreneurs. All of you guys want to set up businesses and do so many different things, come up with so many different solutions for the future. So I think what I'm going to do over here right now is just give you guys, just a few little anecdotes, a few stories, a few things that have happened in my life, a few takeaways that I've had from my life while playing tennis, while competing, and see if any of that can translate into entrepreneurship. So are you guys ready to listen? All right, and if anybody has any questions in the middle, please feel free to ask me questions, because that's the whole point of this. Let's talk, let's discuss, and let's see if we can come up with anything. So tennis to me, sport to me, has been about very, very simple things my whole life. And I hate to strip things down to oversimplify them, but in all honesty, it's been about three things. And we're going to go through each one of those three things point by point. Point number one, and I've heard this, I've been here quite some time already. I've seen a few of you in action. I've seen a lot of the speakers speak. And one of the first things that comes to mind, what do you need to do when you are trying to set up a business? I've heard this already. You're trying to solve a problem, right? A lot of you guys are talking about finding a way to solve a problem. And for me, being an athlete or being a good athlete has always been about being a good problem solver. So let's look at it a little bit more in detail, right? So what does it mean to be a good problem solver as an athlete? It could mean a variety of things, right? Imagine if you're a football player, or imagine so for me, tennis wasn't just about hitting balls and how well you hit balls. It's about how well did you learn how to play the game. How well did you learn how to play the game in different circumstances? Because ultimately, what was your goal as an athlete? Is to try and win, right? And you can't win unless you're a great problem solver. You're not going to come up with your A game every day, right? It's just not possible. You could be sick. You could be jet lagged. You could have wrist pain, knee pain. Something could have happened with whatever, but you have to find a way to move forward. So the first thing about being a good problem solver for me was understanding your strengths and understanding your weaknesses. Because if you don't understand your strengths and your weaknesses and acknowledge them, how are you then going to understand what is it that I want to do? So I'll give you an example. Roger Federer versus Rafael Nadal. Have you guys heard these names? Who's your favorite? Right? Now, whenever we watch a match between two top players play, whenever we watch Virat Kohli up against an insane bowler or bowling attack, it's always about a game within a game. It's always about who's solving the problem. And every time the problem is different. If you're chasing in cricket, the problem is very different than if you're batting, right? In football, if you're down 1-0 versus when you're up 3-0, it's a very different problem. And in tennis, it's the same thing. So a lot of it just comes down to, how good and how apt are you to solve all of these problems one step at a time. So one of the things that I had a tendency to focus on was to play the game right. So that naturally meant understanding strengths and weaknesses, finding ways to play to my strengths, cover up my weaknesses, and also exploit my opponent's weaknesses to the best of my abilities. And when I look at sports today, so my job today is actually to be more of an analyst. I talk about sports, I watch sports, I talk about the French Open, about Wimbledon, about US Open, which is starting next week. What is it that I actually talk about? When there's two players out there playing, what is the game within the game? So that's the most important thing about understanding what it is to be an athlete or what it is to be an entrepreneur, really, is how do you find ways to solve problems that are actually happening right now? Because when you're playing, you can have all the experiences that you want, but every situation is going to be slightly different. Just take a look at now, for example, who's the number 1 player in the world? Anybody knows? Who's the number 2 player in the world? Novak Djokovic, correct. What about Rafael Nadal? Anybody remembers him? What are the problems that Rafael Nadal is going through right now? Injuries. But the injuries he's going through now are very different than the injuries he was going through at 23, 24, right? Why? Because he's 36. So the problems that he now faces are very different than the previous ones, right? So in essence, to be a good athlete means to be a good problem solver at every situation, whether you're on court, whether you're off court, and just find a way to figure it out. So, and I feel that every professional athlete does have this. They have trained for it. And it exists. It works intrinsically. And you just, in many cases, you just have to allow this to happen. So that's point number 1. Point number 1 is being a good problem solver. What's point number 2 about being an athlete, being a sports person? So for me, the second most important thing is to be a good learner. Be a good learner on day 1 when you start something, and be a good learner even later on in your career, because again, situations change, circumstances change. So what does it mean? What do I mean when I say be a good learner? For me, it was always about getting better one day at a time. And that's honestly how I looked at tennis. Now, I don't mean to oversimplify situations. I don't mean to oversimplify things. But if I really had to strip things down, that's what it's all about, is constantly learning things, finding ways to get better, finding ways to solve problems. And think of the journey of every single athlete that's ever lived, ever. Who are the greatest athletes of all time? Muhammad Ali, Usain Bolt, I agree, Michael Phelps, Michael Jordan, Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Kobe Bryant. Yeah, the list goes on and on and on. Now, where do you think all of these people started? They started like where you are, or younger than you are, right? And were they talented? Sure. Were they extraordinary talented? Yeah, perhaps, maybe. But what's the one thing that they all had? They had the drive every single day to get better. It's as simple as that. And so I know, yes, point one is to find ways to solve problems. Point number two is find a way to get better every single day. It's as simple as that. Now, I'll give you a quick story of mine. So I started tennis at the age of 9. And honestly, that is rather late. Nowadays, if you look at it, most professionals start at 4, 5, maybe 7, 6, something like that. But 9 is really late. Now, I didn't, when I started, I just wanted to do everything that my older brother did. My older brother played tennis. I wanted to play tennis. My older brother played music. I wanted to play music. So naturally, what was my number one goal? What do you think my number one goal was when I first started to play tennis? To beat him. To be cool. Yeah, that was number 2. But yeah, my number one goal was to beat my older brother. And I remember after about a year and a half of playing, I found a way to beat him in a set. And instead of going and shaking his hand at the end of it, I ran home so I could tell my parents before anybody changed the story. That's reality of it, right? But very soon after that, I mean, just think about what are the problems that we talk about the athletes face in today's India. What are the problems we face? Exposure, fitness, equipments, infrastructure. We've heard that before, right? So we've heard, sorry? Paparazzi. No, those are only the ones that make it. We're talking about the ones who are 10, 11, 12, 13, the up-and-comers, people where the kids who are trying to achieve that dream, right? So all the problems that exist today existed 30 years ago, right? Probably more exaggerated, right? So one of the things that I looked at, like to be completely honest with you, I never considered myself to be the most talented kid out there. I was okay. I thought there was a lot of kids out there that were much better than me in terms of forehands, backhands, touch, feel, a basic skill on a tennis court. But if I had one talent, and one talent only, I would say my biggest talent was the fact that even after I lost, I mean, did I like losing? No, I didn't like losing. I wanted to win just as much as the next person, maybe more. But if I won or if I lost, it would absolutely not change what was going to happen the next day at practice. That was my biggest talent, is perseverance. It's coming back, regardless of the win, regardless of the loss, regardless of hand pain, leg pain, any other pain, fever, school, exams, it didn't make a difference. If I had to be back out there the next day training, that's exactly what I did. So that was one of my biggest skills. Now, just coming to, and I'm getting to a point with this, guys, I promise you. Now, in many ways, I was very fortunate because I grew up right around a tennis court, right? So I was 9 years old. We were in the income tax quarters. My dad worked for the government, so I had access to a tennis court. So, before school, where did I spend my time? On a tennis court. After school, where did I spend my time? On a tennis court. Sometimes I hit with friends, sometimes the coaches fed balls to me, and sometimes I ended up hitting on the wall. But the one thing I didn't agree to is if somebody told me that you can't get better in this environment, I said, no, you're wrong. I can. I can get better in this environment. You absolutely can, because can you still go out there and hit balls? Yes, you can. Can you still go out there and get fitter? Yes, you can. And nobody was going to stop us doing that. Now, we talk about exposure. Today, if you guys want to watch, did you guys watch Alcaraz Djokovic 2 days ago? Maybe some people did, maybe some people didn't. But the point being, you have the access to it. If you want to watch something, if you want to learn, you have the ability to do that. 30 years ago, we didn't have that. So what did we have? We had, back in the day, we had this thing called the Chennai Open. I don't know if you guys followed the Chennai Open. It was the only international tournament in India at the time. Still, up until recently, it was, up until this year, it was still the only international tournament. So I grew up watching that tournament as a 10-year-old, as 11, 12-year-old. And my biggest lessons in life were actually in those 10 days. I would sit at the stadium with my friends and just sit down and watch what was happening, watch what the players are doing, see the racket head speed, the acceleration, the footwork, the kind of ways that they played in different situations. If they were up, how did they play? If they were down, how did they play? If they lost the first set, what was their body language like? If they won the first set, what was it like? In tight situations, what were you looking for? Were they going to, were they playing safe? Were they not playing safe? So there's so many little nuances that we could watch and learn right in front of us. And so for me, those weeks ended up being the most important weeks. And the reason being is because those were the weeks where I felt like no one in the world could tell me that I couldn't get better. And I feel like you guys are in a very similar situation now. Infrastructure, whatever. And this kind of leads me to my third point. So point number 1 was solve problems. Point number 2 was find ways to get better every single day. And point number 3, do not make excuses. No excuses. Excuses are not valid. It's as simple as that. So, and that's something I teach tennis now to a lot of kids. And that's the one thing I always go out and tell them. And if there's one thing that you guys can take away from this, from anything that I've said in the last 5-10 minutes, is absolutely no excuses. Because no one can tell you that you can't get better. Believe that. So, it is the cardinal rule of sport, isn't it? No excuses. Because at the end of the day, yes, if we're looking at it very truthfully, and I know that the Gen Z, everyone here is Gen Z? You all categorize as Gen Z. You all are incredibly thoughtful. You all are incredibly thoughtful. You all are incredibly sensitive. And a lot of times you all are right. You all are right about several things. But a lot of times you're also not. So what I'm trying to say is, in all honesty, are there reasons for you to find an excuse, to make an excuse? And are those reasons valid? Yeah. A lot of times they are, right? Whether you're sick, whether you have anxiety, or whether something's happening in your family, or somebody broke up with somebody, or I don't know. There's 1,000 things. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why what you're saying is valid. All I'm trying to say is that there's also plenty of reasons why none of that matters, and there's plenty of reasons why you can focus on the things that you need to focus on. Because if you look at it, if you strip it down, if you put it all down on a piece of paper and say, here are the reasons why I shouldn't succeed, and here are the reasons why I'm still motivated too. If we continue to focus on the reasons that we shouldn't succeed, we'll lose sight for the reasons of why we're doing it in the first place. So absolutely. So I would say these are the most 3 important things, is A, find solutions, B, find ways to get better every single day, and 3, regardless of what else is happening outside in the world, no excuses. So now the question becomes, how do we use these 3 values towards anything when it comes to entrepreneurship? Anything at all, right? So we've heard so many amazing pitches, incredible ideas. We've heard solutions here for people that have already been successful, right? Now, do you think they're solving problems? Yes, I agree. Do you think they're finding ways to get better every day? And do you think they're making excuses? There you go. So that's how a little bit of my sporting journey, I just wanted to share that with you, because in many ways, when you start off as an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old or a whatever teenager, and you're out there trying to make it in whatever sport you're trying to make it in many ways, you are an entrepreneur, because you are invested in your career, and you only have one chance. You only have one chance. If you slip up and you get lazy for 3 or 4 years, there goes your business. There goes your shot at making it. So while I didn't start, I'm so happy I'm here, because this is the first time this has ever happened? This is the first time this has ever happened. In 5 years, in 10 years, we'll all be sitting here saying, wow, we were over here among some of the brightest minds all across India. Bangalore, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, and this is only going to grow. It's only going to keep getting better. I look at this as like the Shark Tank for kids. And it's such an incredible place, because this is where the future is. Necessity is the mother of invention at the end of the day. And you guys are the ones that are actually going to find out what is necessary in the next step. How do we figure out waste management solutions? How do we figure out reducing the carbon footprint? How do we figure out sporting solutions? Is sport actually important for a country? And before I stop, I just want to talk a little bit about that. Now, is sport actually important for a country, guys? Yes. Why? Sorry? Nationalistic feelings. What else? It brings people together. Great. What else? Economic prosperity. How so? Okay, fair. Anything else? Thank you. Somebody was listening over here. Nice, nice. And how do you guys think we are doing as a country with sport? Come on. How are we doing, guys? On a scale of 1 to 10. Someone said 10. Who said 10? We're out of a scale of 1 to 10, we are doing 10 in terms of international sports.
When compared to previous years, we are doing a lot better. Like a couple of years ago, no one knew what javelin is. Like now we know what javelin is. So we are improving, but
we're on an upward trend.
Yes,
we're on an upward trend.
There
are we at 10?
Things, yes.
Are
no,
we at
not 10, but when compared to previous years, we are 10.
Okay. And do you think we could be doing better things with sport? Okay. So I'm going to share a really quick story with you guys. So I am now 38 years old. Okay. So when I played my first junior Grand Slam, I'm assuming none of you were born. Just to let that sink in. Somebody else was calling somebody old over here. I was thinking to myself, So in 2011, I was very much active on the tour still. I was playing all the slams. And we were in Chennai in 2011, January. And I had three of us together. We grew up playing tennis together. One of them is an IIM grad. The other one is the first one that ever got weekend sporting events into India. So weekend football events. And we used to run small businesses, just running weekend events in Bangalore, in Chennai, and all around south of India. And the three of us got together, and we recognized one thing. We recognized that it came to our attention that there was an orphanage very, very close to where we were staying. The orphanage had about 50 boys only. And they were very keen at playing sports, but they didn't really have opportunities. They didn't really have accessibility. They didn't really have any culture, no structure. They just wanted to go out and play. So what we did was very simple. Three of us got together. We raised a few funds, something very simple. And we got this idea that just organizing a football clinic for these kids, it would teach us something and it would teach them something. That's where the idea began. So we got together, we got 10 volunteers, all our friends, we got maybe 5 or 6 footballs, and we had about 25 kids show up. And we decided, yeah, we had 2 coaches, we had enough people in the ecosystem that we knew. So we said, okay, let's begin, let's see what happens. Let's have an organized class for them over Saturday and Sunday, and let's see where this takes us. So this was in 2011, January. Now, soon, Saturday and Sunday finished, kids had a great time. Obviously, right? Why wouldn't they? They've never had access to 5 footballs. They've never had anybody coaching them. They've never had to play with cones. They've never had biryani after football. So there were so many cool things that were happening over there. So the kids absolutely loved it. So then the 3 of us looked at each other and we said, you know what? Let's formalize this a little bit more. Let's take this one step further. Let's see if we can do this for the entire year with this one orphanage. So put our heads together, and very soon we realized that the problem that the kids in the orphanage faced was what? They didn't have accessibility. They didn't have any opportunity. Do you think kids from government schools or rural backgrounds in India have the same problems? Right? So it wasn't that we were solving a problem for a niche organization or a niche orphanage. We just took a step back and we realized, wow, actually, most of the kids in our country don't have opportunities to play, let alone organize sport, just to play, right? So then we said, okay, what can we do that's within our control? Then we started looking at the other things. We're looking at 50 boys in an orphanage. What happens to the girls? Do the girls have more or less opportunity according to you? Why? Good. Wow, you guys are smart. Now how do you think we're doing as a country with sports? No, guys, this is just eye-opening. This is just eye-opening. I'm not out here saying one thing or another. I'm just saying the stuff that I'm talking about actually exists. It exists. It exists in our society. And by acknowledging that it exists, it doesn't mean I'm downplaying it. By acknowledging that it exists, we're actually going to try to change it. Okay? So now we started with one orphanage. And immediately we started realizing that girls' schools had even less opportunities, right? So the problem that we were trying to solve is, again, coming back to those 3 important things. The problem that we were trying to solve is we were trying to provide opportunities for those less fortunate than us that did not have opportunities, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, what are the hurdles that you face? Now, the hurdles that we faced, and again, I'm so happy that I have school kids over here. If you guys are in school and you're running behind on the syllabus and one class needs to be taken away, which one is it? Math? Math is taken away? At least when we were in school, it was PE, right? PE, art, music, I heard a lot of that. But a lot of that stuff is art. Right? When we were in school and there were rain delays or there was holidays because of something political or any reason, whatever reason that we were behind on our syllabus, the first class that was taken away was PE. The only teacher that had to make kids stand in line was the PT master, right? It wasn't the English teacher or the science teacher or whatever else. It was always that. So that told us very clearly where it is that we lacked. And it wasn't that we were trying to, reinvent the wheel, but it was actually that we were trying to put it into our culture that sports is important. All of us are saying that sports is important, but when you actually look at it at the grassroots level, is it that important? Do you guys still do march past in school? How is that relevant to sport? Right. There are many ways that's relevant. But again, these are just questions for you guys to think about. These are just questions for you guys to think about, right? Because which are some of the most sporting countries in the world out there? You think they're doing march past? So again, just questions to think about, no right or wrong answers, and just give me a few minutes over here because I'm almost done. Now, second thing is we started realizing that we leave all of these problems aside, but it was the first problem that we actually had to do was to show the school that we started working in that we were actually making a difference. Now, what was the school having a problem with? The school was having a problem with attendance because these are government schools. They are, in underdeveloped areas. And so the school was having a problem with attendance, and the school was having a problem with the kids getting into trouble after school. So immediately, when the sports programs came in, two things happened. One, if you want to play sports in our school, attendance is compulsory. Right? So two things happened. One is attendance went up. Two, juvenile delinquency went down. How do we do that? Simply by offering sports. Sports programs before school, sports programs after school, and if you wanted to be a part of the sports programs, you had to attend school. Simple as that, right? So now that's the two things that we did. A, we found a problem. We tried to get better every single day. And the third thing we did is regardless of what happened, we talked about why it was harder for girls, right? Because there are stereotype biases. That exists, and you guys are absolutely right. It does exist, but we had to find a way, because we would go up to kids and we would say, what are the sports that girls are going to play? They said Kho-Kho. What are the sports that guys are going to play? They said cricket or football or something like that. What was the first thing that we did? Mixed events. Mixed events in all the sports. And then we started realizing that the kids will start learning. What is another problem that everybody faces in school? Bullying. Have you guys ever faced bullying? Or been a part of it, or seen it, or one way or another, have you seen it? And that's the first thing that you can do in sport as well, is we had a beautiful, what's it called? It was say no to bullying, and if anybody was bullying in class, we gave them a red card. Say no to bullying. And the other thing that we did is that all of the bullies then became the class leaders, because there was a different way for the bullies to channel their energy into. So, in conclusion, I'd just like to leave you with that. Yes, I'm not a tycoon in the business world yet, but I am a humble sports person. But I just wanted to share with you guys a few small instances where sporting values, in my opinion, can really, really help you guys personally with everything that you've dealt with, the troubles that you're dealing with, and to find a way to persevere. And also for your business, if you guys can use some of the sporting values that you have heard today and that you guys have probably experienced in your own life, I do hope at the end of the day that anything I said, even if it's 1%, if somebody has absorbed something and can use it in their lives, that will be extremely grateful. Once again, thank you guys so much for having me. It's been an absolute honor to be here. I love discussing this with the next generation. So you guys are the future, and hopefully we'll all be here to support you. Thank you guys so much.